unconditionally?
Yes.
I'm convinced that you do. Oh, you didn't answer.
Very interesting. You're on the spot now.
Because you're looking
See,
at
she's
it.
choking on the water.
No!
You drank it, she's choking.
I was agreeing by like just swallowing.
So this is something that you would be willing, I'm assuming, to die for your children.
They're going to live longer than me anyway.
There you go. And
It's only wise.
do you feel that anyone could convince you that you don't love your children?
Nuh-uh.
Unless they come up with the definition of love that is completely foreign to what I think it is now.
Do you feel like you could go anywhere and be convinced by some other way of thinking that your kids don't matter or that you don't love them?
No.
I can't entertain that possibility. Like I imagine that sort of situation and it comes up blank.
I believe you. Why is it that nobody seems to have this for religion? Some people are martyrs. Some people seem to have that.
Yeah.
However, when it comes to the idea of being threatened,
You're protective of the idea. I'm not worried about somebody convincing me that I don't love my kids, but I would have been worried about somebody trying to undermine my faith.
yes.
Yeah.
Why is this? And I don't necessarily, because again, the ex-Christian in me would automatically go to, well, because if you are undermining your faith, I would separate the two. Basically.
Yeah. There would be some spiritual reason why faith needs to be protected, and you need to work it out with fear and trembling.
Exactly.
Wow, what are you talking about?
So no one could make you doubt your love for your children. And you would be like, you dare someone, go ahead, try to convince me that I don't love my children. But nobody would say, try to convince me that my faith is useless.
People won't even speak to somebody who doesn't share the faith sometimes. They change their mind about it and they kick them out or they shun them or whatever. Why on earth would that be necessary if you were truly convinced?
Yeah.
And I don't think this is necessarily a problem of, okay, well, you just need to learn
Study
to be
more.
convinced.
Yeah.
I think
Just
it's
go to 3
because
Bible colleges.
there's only a certain
Yes.
amount of convincing you can have
About spiritual things.
about
like this.
spiritual things.
Yeah.
Because it really is not the same as your kids that are really here,
Yeah.
that came from you,
Yes.
that you see and you interact with in a very
And
real
feel
way.
all the time.
All
And
the
here's the
time.
funny thing. We shouldn't even be looking for that kind of certainty in our faith. We shouldn't even be looking for something. Like I watched the debate between a few years ago, Bill Nye and Ken Ham.
Oh, yes. I've
And
watched
they
it many
asked him at the
times.
end, what would make you change your mind? And Bill
Yeah.
Nye's like, evidence.
Yeah.
And Ken Ham's like, nothing. Nothing could change my mind. So it's like, so you're saying that this is then at the same level as your love for your children. Why? That's not useful. Why does it have to be so raw? Doubt is, it shouldn't be the evil sin that it is.
No, doubt is wonderful. Doubt is how we ensure we're not being taken.
Doubt creates variation and change, and
Where's
it helps.
prodigal son?
Prodigal son, he wasn't a doubter.
Well, no, when he came
He was
back,
just a
his
bit of an
dad was
asshole.
so
He was a
happy.
partier, you know.
Yeah.
He was party. So
It's
I'm
true.
just saying, like, people like within the family, especially,
Mm-hmm.
you embrace them no matter what.
Yeah.
Like our kids, it's funny because I'm like, okay, I know I'm a Christian. If my kids grew up, because we're in Toronto, for whatever reason, whatever they do, something even that I wouldn't do or encourage, as a parent, I would still always love them and never, like your dad always
And
says,
accept.
he would never kick any of you out, no matter what you guys ever do.
Mhm.
If we murdered somebody, he said.
Yeah, like it was
Like,
amazing
well, Dave,
because like
I
okay.
guess I know what's...
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
you
Guess
can
I know the
never,
limits.
because you're the only really biggest source that your family has. If you don't get the support from them, I mean,
Mhm.
very few chances you're going to get the support from outside that circle
Mhm.
that is so close to you, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, unconditional love.
Unconditional love.
It
And
should
then...
never end. No
and
matter
allowing your spirit, see, if we're able to hold our spiritual stories, all these myths, and I say myth not as in a story that's not true, I mean
Yeah.
a myth as in a story that shapes you. If we can hold them with an open hand I bet we'll be able to hold them a lot longer and do more with them, because as soon as we try to grab them, then all of a sudden
They start squeezing out.
and it's like harder and harder, and then so evangelicalism is now, it's like they feel like their backs are against the wall, these evangelicals. That's one of the reasons why they're so loud and harsh on Twitter these days.
Yeah.
And so everything is so aggressive now because they feel like, oh, we're being threatened, our way of life. Just hold it open a little bit. Let the wind blow some of it off. And maybe a few more generations will be able to enjoy some of the richness that this path had or has to offer.
If it really is what it claims to be, it will withstand criticism.
Yeah.
It just like your kids. You wouldn't necessarily tell a person that you can't tell me that I don't love my kids.
Yeah.
You would hear them and you just not be convinced.
Yeah, I would totally hear them out.
Yeah,
You would hear them out like, yeah, you can go ahead, or I can go in this village of I don't love my kids or whatever.
Yeah.
And you can
Test it.
parade it around. Yeah, you can test it.
Yeah.
That's I would think any
really
parent is ready to be tested.
I'd be in fact quite curious.
Sure.
I'd be like, show me what you got.
Yeah.
Show me.
And it's not
Don't
because
let me.
of just some blind assertion, whatever. It's because you are
That's how
a
you
parent to these
felt it.
kids.
I've
You
experienced.
know these kids better than anybody else. You know what is actually in the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is real to you. This is your world.
Yeah.
And so if we can't do that or shouldn't do that with religion, why is that the case?
It's a warning flag, and it's interesting because when we allow ourselves to do that, to explore the things that we're not allowed to explore in our faith. Like at KOBC, one thing when we were doing biblical studies, they would say higher criticism is not allowed, which means asking where did the book come from and how was the book written. We're not allowed asking that. That's a little unfaithful, they said, which is like, okay. But I've noticed, because I've been taking a bunch of Bible courses at U of T, there's a richness in the Bible that you can get when you don't have to think that every jot and tittle is inspired by God forever and ever, amen. You know?
Yeah, it
being
becomes
able to hold religion with an open hand allows, I think, the religion to burn a little nicer and cleaner and more powerful, if we can do that. I think the biggest problem with religion in general is when it's squeezed like a precious possession. Don't take it from me. And then you look at all the other things in society that seem like a threat to it, and because all the very conservative religions, they keep going like this and getting more and more segregated, more and more enclosed. And then they perish. And then now there's churches all over Toronto that are being turned into apartment complexes, which look beautiful, by the way. These awesome big United buildings.
Interesting.
But, yeah.
So, did you, when you weren't a Christian, was there anybody that you talked to, especially Christians, who were somewhat understanding of where you were coming from or where you're going? Or
Very, very, very few. I tried with my family. The only one who would have been understanding to an extent would have been my sister. She was the only one she was probably the one I heard from the least. She had good intentions with it. She detected that I was confused and that I kind of needed to be left alone. And so she did that.
Yeah.
However, and I appreciate that, but I would have appreciated distance with some support and some understanding. So everyone else in my family just lectured me. I wasn't raised that way. I'm backsliding, that whole everything. And then there were some other Christians who I really looked up to, who I might have done ministry with in the past and all that. The ones who I got to know pretty well. I'm like, yeah, you're the grounded one. And some of them And I reached out to them and tried to explain. It was difficult to explain, but I tried to explain what was happening. I'm like, I just need to step back from everything because I feel like I was doing things for the wrong reasons. And not a single one understood. And I also got this very strong vibe of them not wanting to understand.
Okay.
Not at all. It was not like come in and
Let's talk about this.
Something's obviously
troubling
you. I want to understand.
Nobody changes their entire faith structure without something's up.
Yeah, especially somebody who was following the path the way I was.
Yeah.
You'd think I would have earned that.
I guess it's the willfulness and malevolence, of course.
Exactly. Something like that was detected
Yeah.
by the Christian radar.
Yeah.
And because of that, wall.
Yeah. And that's difficult because I remember when and it's funny, looking back, I'm like, why did I blog about all that stuff as I was going through it? And then of course, the emails came in, and I don't think I responded to them well. I don't think I responded to any of them actually at all, because I was kind of messed up. But it was all this most of it was a similar sort of, we were really batting for you, and it turns out we were wrong about you. Sort of, I got accused of theft by one guy.
Wow.
Well, because I was a missionary, means I've been stealing money from the church.
I never even asked for money.
Because I must have been a bad person even back then. Right. So that sucked.
Interesting.
And that's the only time I yelled on the internet. And I got one email. Yeah. But there wasn't much of, not from everyone. No, I mean, I've had some interesting conversations with people who are still fundamentally fundamentalists, but who have attempted to listen and to be a bridge. Relatively rare.
Yeah.
I commend anybody who was like that, because
that's hard to do, I bet.
It is very hard to do. I remember what it was like for me as a Christian. I would have struggled to do that. I probably would have tried, because I know that I did with other examples.
Yeah.
But I probably would have been kind of bad at it.
And because we would want to have hedged what we were saying with, we would want to limit our compassion with truth.
Yeah.
Right?
You want to extend that bridge, but you don't want to cross over to the other side.
Here's a bridge. Come back.
Yeah. It's like you feel like somebody's falling away. You want to reach out, but if you go past this line, your hand's gonna get chopped off. I might fall too. So you're like, you want to extend, you want to help, it's the right thing, but
So people maybe didn't even know how to approach
I don't think they did.
that situation, because if I sometimes try to imagine, let's say, some of the people I knew.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a husband, so it's not that, it's like, I don't know. But the other people that I knew back in the day who weren't Christians anymore, I try to imagine what would it be like for me would I reach out to them? And if I did, what would I say?
Yeah.
It's so difficult to know what to say.
It's hard to picture, so that I think, because I would get frustrated how people we knew for so long just suddenly, some of them either disappeared or sent one email and they were done. People that we used to hang out with even after KLBC with couples or whatever wasn't happening anymore. It was just like, this is...
What do you talk about at the table?
I had...
I
know.
What are we going to talk about now? So...
that's...
Alright.
All I got is Calvinism, and all I got is not Christianism.
I would still love to talk about Calvinism. Whenever I hang out with evangelical friends, I'm always like, I hope we talk theology. I want back.
I had maybe like 2 or 3 people who grew up in the same church who they were just naturally good people.
Yep.
That I could talk to. I mean, I didn't talk to them to a huge extent about the whole thing. I did talk about it a little bit, but generally speaking, we were always really good at regular friendship.
Yeah, all good.
And we were friends who did Christianity together. We weren't Christians who did friendship together.
Wow.
Most of my Christian friendships were Christianity. We were Christians doing friendship together, which was pretty superficial.
Yeah.
But I had about 2 or 3 who I could connect with when I needed to, but only to a certain extent, because they were kind of on their own journey of they maybe didn't really go as often to church. They didn't really know what to think. They held certain beliefs. Other things didn't make sense to them anymore, and ultimately they seemed more concerned with just trying to put their life together and to have some sort of life, because being sort of caught in that dialogue often feels like you're just wasting away. And I still feel that way, where I feel like all I want to do is spend so much time in these conversations, but at the same time these conversations have nothing to do with real life for me.
It's an interesting
they have everything to do with it, psychologically, philosophically, as I try to recover from religion or whatever. But in terms of trying to get my games
trying to get in the Ubisoft down there, it's like,
has nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with that. So sometimes I'm spending a lot of time just trying to put my life together because I was misguided a whole lot at my expense financially and time-wise and emotionally to pursue things that have nothing to do with my identity anymore.
Yeah.
And I was just basically left with a gaping hole of debt and confusion and zero support.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had to admit defeat many times. I've had to start over many times. I've had to try new things many times to figure out, okay, what am I going to do with myself? And sometimes I'm doing that, and then I hear like something about religion, and I'm like, oh yeah, that world. Oh, and then it all comes back. I have this blissful time period of not needing to sort of be like, what a mind fuck. But at the same time, I'm glad that I'm addressing it as well, because I need to for myself, and I feel like it's important for others who there's some people who interact with my atheistic posts.
Okay.
And then most other people send me private messages.
Yeah.
And
I wish it would be public, but whatever.
Yeah, but I totally get it, because they don't feel safe to agree with what I say.
Yep.
Or to even just admit that it makes them think, or that it reminds them of something that they're confused about, or whatever.
Yeah.
They don't feel safe to do that, because a Christian community,
isn't a safe place for that.
As kind or gentle as they might be, we all know what it means to say certain things.
Yeah.
We all know what it means to start wearing the label of I'm questioning or I'm doubting.
Yeah.
We all know that it's suddenly we get a different look from people.
Yeah.
They start praying for us.
Yes. And not in the nice general way that we're asking for. It's change them.
Change their mind. They're starting to go down the wrong path. You're like, so it's what?
Okay. I just keep talking.
Okay.
Sorry.
So it
changes the relationship on a fundamental level.
It really does.
Because and how do we always? I remember one of the big things we'd pray about at KOBC, or at any other place where there's like not necessarily local church, but like a parachurch thing going, like a conference, a Christian conference, and people would be like, "Look at us all from different places," and we have the bond of Christ that unites us all. So we're always saying that our religious bond is greater than every other bond that we can make.
Greater than blood, too.
Yeah.
For a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's, they say blood is thicker than water, but...
You know what that means, though? The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. So it actually means that this religious or other thing that we're the blood of the covenant, us being promised to each other, is more important than the womb that we shared. That's the origin of that saying. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb.
That's messed up.
So it's the opposite of what we think it means.
That's messed up.
That's messed up.
So did you ever? So how long has it been since you figured out? Okay, you're no longer Christian.
Oh yeah. So,
and then how have you recovered from? Or are you still in the process of healing?
So from the time of that epiphany, I had my 4-year abyss of trying to figure out which side was talking and trying to figure out
So in the
who
abyss,
I am.
you're not even in your own mind. You're not. I'm a non-Christian. You're just in an abyss.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't have said I was a Christian, but I wouldn't have said I was a non-Christian either.
Okay. Yep.
It was very purgatory.
Yeah.
And I just.
So it's the Catholicism that led you away, isn't it? Yes.
I thought you might pick up on that. Excuse me while I say my Hail Marys. So I did that for 4 years, and then I basically everything that I was trying to do as an independent human being fell apart.
Yeah.
I quit my job because I was miserable at it and I hated it, and my relationship also ended, and we were supporting each other, and I had nothing left.
Yeah.
So I moved back home because I had no choice, and this is when I finished my addictions diploma, and I was starting to do the full-time mental health work while I was living back home, and I used every ounce of what I learned in the addictions program of how to better talk to my dad and my stepmom, so that this could not be a disaster again.
Yes.
And thankfully, I really actually made progress.
Wow.
This was so... I used the technique without realizing I was using it.
Right.
Because I told my program manager after, I'm like, yeah, I finally got to have this talk with them, and this is how it went. And he's like, you're actually doing something right now. Basically, it was this technique where people are naturally defensive.
Yes.
And it is...
No, I'm not.
And it is difficult to disarm them, to disarm those defenses. So when you word yourself in a certain way, it helps to basically disarm them. And I didn't realize I was doing it with my dad. I was just pleading in a way that was honest for me.
Yeah.
But what I was saying was, it's 3 parts to it. You say, this is what happened. This is how it made me feel. This is what I need from you. And
This is what happened. This is how it made me feel. This is what I need from you.
Exactly. All of this helps to keep any accusation off of them.
Because there's nothing accusatory in that.
Not necessarily.
Depending on what you need from them.
It's close.
Or
well,
what
this
happened.
is the thing. When you say, this is what happened, you say it in an objective way. Not, this is what you did to me.
Right.
That's defense.
Yeah.
You say, this is what happened, in a way where you can both agree with it. Yeah. It was a disaster. Okay. This is how it made me feel. This has nothing to do with you.
Yep.
When it happened, I felt abandoned. I felt whatever. What I need from you is the empowerment to them. It's not accusatory. Wow. It's empowerment. It's, you can do something
to help me. Yeah.
You can be my hero in this, in a sense.
Yeah.
I need you to say this or not say that whenever this happens.
Yeah. That's such a see, because when you go at it that way, you're changing the story from you're a villain who hurt me to you could be a hero that can help me.
Absolutely.
And everybody wants to do that. Everybody wants to be a hero.
Totally. Regardless of the whole thing about, you did this, who started, whatever, that never helps anything. Totally useless. But when you can just keep it objective, like, okay, let's just keep it in the middle here. This is what happened. This is how it made me feel. And this is what you can be to me. This means that you can be something of value to me right now.
Wow.
Not you aren't something of value to me
and
because of what you did.
And you better change so that you can be valuable to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People will naturally gravitate toward change if it resonates with them, if it's something that's meaningful to their world. It's the same with kids. You can tell them till you're blue in the face to do a certain thing, and they may do it out of fear or whatever, but ultimately what's going to work best is if it makes sense to the world that they understand.
Yeah.
If they understand that why, in a way that in a language that they speak.
Yeah.
Why it's important for them to do this and not that.
And for something that they value. Something that they want to be a part of.
Exactly. And if you tell this person, this is what I need from you, they can be a part of this world that they've already just agreed to. Yes, this is what happened. I could, okay, I'll accept that this is how you're saying that you felt. Generally speaking, most people will be okay with that. They might be like, oh, unless you say something like, I felt judged. Then they might say, I wasn't judging you.
Because that is a little bit of an accusatory word.
Exactly.
Judged, yeah.
If you say, I felt, if you just say, I felt hurt, or I felt, because even in the example I gave before, abandoned may suggest something.
Yeah.
But you try to use words that just keeps it on you. This is how I felt. These were my feelings. I felt hurt by this situation.
Yeah.
And then, you empower them. Be the hero of my story by doing this. And you can wrap it up by saying, I'm gonna be the hero of your story by doing this as well.
Yeah. Because then you also listen back.
Totally.
See, this is it's almost like a redemption story without sin.
This is what happened. This is how it made me feel. Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
It's like instead of because the redemption story, there's two ways of looking at it, right? We're broken, and we need healing, or we're evil, and whatever the complicated atonement, that's a bit, when we do it that way, it's a little bit complicated. But if it's just we're all a bit broken, and we all could use some healing, and we can all be that to each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can be that.
We can be that.
This is so important. It's so important that a person doesn't feel confined to a space of I don't want to say necessarily judgment, like that's true, but we should be able to be comfortable with criticism and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But what is almost always missing is the empowerment. The empowerment to really say, you can do this thing, and you can mean something to me by doing it.
Yeah.
And more often than not, people will really take to that because fundamentally we do care.
We do.
About our family member or about each other.
Yeah.
We have a certain amount of empathy. We just.
Otherwise, we wouldn't watch movies.
No.
Like even the most selfish person in the world likes a movie.
Yeah.
Or something like we just have this natural thing. We look at another person, we recognize another mind, and we can empathize.
Totally. So when I said this to my dad, he said something he's never said before in any situation where I tried to make him understand the way I felt. He said, "I'll try." And I was so unprepared for that, I had no idea what to say afterward. Wow. It was just like silence. I just hadn't planned that far. I had really come to I had really come to a place where I was ready to die accepting that he would never see things differently about things in the past.
Yeah.
And that he would never want to do things differently. I think it was him saying that was not just the way I worded it. I think it was also other circumstances in his marriage at the time and his life and all that. I think all these things contributed, but ultimately he said he'll try, and I just he never really judged me again after that. Very slowly we were able to have small conversations again about this and that, and he started saying things that I never would have thought he would say. Like, he said at one point, "Nobody can tell you how to live your life." And I was like, did you just say this?
Wow.
Is that you?
Was your dad a Christian?
Yeah. He was never like a Bible college student or anything like that. But as much as he could be, sincere, I think he was. Yeah. And I think he was proud to see us as Christians. But I think he fundamentally, what he cares about most, and I kind of used this against him in order to reconcile the relationship, because I had no other way, but basically I knew that what he ultimately cared about was relationships. This is the only thing, relationships with his family foremost. And I knew that when I was going through my abyss and I was getting nothing but lectured, I knew that if I took that away from him, he would be reminded of that eventually, that it doesn't matter. What matters most is that we are able to talk to each other. And what's happening right now is not what that is. This is us versus them now all of a sudden. We're no longer father and son in this way. And I knew that if I took that relationship away from him, which I hated doing, I knew it would rip him apart. And it's exactly what it did. It slowly just tore him apart. To the point where the only thing he wanted to do was just have lunch with me. And like, this is what I needed us to get to. I needed us to just be like, okay, there's things we disagree with, whatever, but if we can't sit down and have lunch as father and son, something is so wrong. And so I hated doing that. I hated doing that knowing that his health was failing at the same time. And like, what if he dies while I'm trying to do this? This was such a stress that I was carrying for so long. And I was hoping the same sort of thing would happen with my siblings, but it didn't, because I knew that this was my dad's thing. My dad's thing was he was okay to sacrifice so much of a personal life if it meant providing for the kids, food, shelter. I think so highly of him for being one of the fathers who stuck around, for being one of the fathers who continued to provide for us. Even though he had major flaws, like any parent would.
Father?
I think so highly of him for those qualities. I really hope that I I measure up to those qualities myself, whether or not I'm a parent. I want those traits, and I thank him for those traits.
That's beautiful.
But he started talking to me differently after we had that conversation. He started to, again, not necessarily say he agreed with me or whatever. It just
because you're not even looking for agreement. We're not looking for people to agree with us. It's
no.
an acceptance.
I want to be
instead.
able to talk about these things. I want to be able to be myself. I want us to be curious about each other.
Yeah. That's a good one. Being
Very
curious about each other.
Christians are not curious about what non-Christians think.
Well, because, like the thing that I always heard growing up was, if you want to know the truth, don't study the counterfeit.
Oh, wow.
Right? So if you really want to know the world religions, study the Bible.
Wait, what?
Like, because I remember before going to Pakistan, I thought I should read the Quran. I should know all the Muslim. But a lot of Christian leaders were like, don't do that. Don't study the counterfeit. Study the Bible. The only way to understand the Muslim is to know Christianity good enough to tell them how it's wrong.
Wow.